And for more on this, we are now joined by Khaya Sithole, an independent analyst, to unpack that ruling from the US Supreme Court. He joins us now via our video link. Mr. Sithole, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Let's start off here. What is your reaction to that ruling from the US Supreme Court, basically nullifying US President Donald Trump's tariffs?
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers. I think obviously the ruling was quite, it's a major issue for the United States because unfortunately, whether rightly or wrongly, there's been this perception that all the US Supreme Court justices that are obviously aligned to the Republicans and having been nominated by Republican presidents will always say yes to whatever Donald Trump has asked for. And I think the fact that there was then obviously clearly a departure from that script and a response that said, well, actually, there is indeed a limit to the president's powers will have ramifications beyond this particular case because Donald Trump has been of the view that surely his powers should be unlimited and it's only the courts that can probably remind us that actually there is a particular limit. It's not going to happen from the Republican lawmakers who are beholden to him because they depend on him in order to ensure their continuity in office.
And Mr. Sithole, breaking news coming in this evening when it comes to those tariffs. Yesterday, during his reaction, US President Donald Trump saying that he will impose not more than 10% of, the tariffs. But now, with breaking news coming in saying that he will rather impose 15% tariffs on all countries. What is your reaction to that latest development?
So it appears that one of the clauses that he's now going to use does indeed have a ceiling of 15%. So when he said 10% yesterday, there was always a question of, well, does this mean that for the countries with whom he has the greatest gripes, he will then approach the ceiling of 15%? And we didn't really have to wait long for him to actually be reminded that he indeed can go up to that ceiling by using that particular clause. But what makes that clause different is that it can only be applied for a limited time frame. I believe the answer is 150 days in which it can be in place. And then thereafter, it has to be reversed or there has to be another process that says, well, actually, you can redo this or you can extend it. So he has indeed gone for the ceiling. It will be there for 150 days unless, and as we know, something might happen in between.
When you look at this ruling from the Supreme Court, what does it mean essentially for trade, particularly with countries who are trading with the US going forward?
Unfortunately, it does not mean much because quite clearly what has happened since that Liberation Day tariffs thing that we saw last year, it has become clear that the United States as a negotiation partner is not to be relied on and is not to be trusted. So you saw countries that said that, look, we clearly have to find a way of engaging with this particular administration, only to find that their efforts didn't amount to much. So it's very difficult to imagine that anyone is now going to immediately change the way that they were planning on their trade activities on the basis of this ruling, with the understanding that the United States is not a normal place. Donald Trump will find another way to disrupt or to, change the way in which the trade relationships have been structured. So it is really a matter of it's what the United States courts have said. Now we have to wait and see whether he can find a different way of still enforcing his agenda. And if he carries on with the pursuit of this agenda, absolutely no one will know what happens from one day to the next until the end of his term.
And this, of course, has impacted a number of countries and sectors, particularly when you look at South Africa. What does this mean for our trade with the US, particularly at a time where, the issue of AGOA came to the fore and that was affected?
Well, again, I don't think it should mean much because ours is even more complicated and chaotic. So AGOA has been extended until December. It is the shortest extension that we've ever seen. And of course, for as long as that remains in place, some goods will benefit from that. But Donald Trump has a particular gripe and he's got a particular issue against South Africa. So if he decides to be arbitrary, South Africa is never far off his radar. So again, something might come up and then he might decide that South Africa should be the target of some other new instruments that he puts together. What we also do know is that even when he does indeed implement these arbitrary and wide-ranging tariffs, there's always a process of carve-outs, and the motivation behind those carve-outs is when those that are much closer to him and those that can influence him highlight to him that actually that particular item or those particular goods are a bit more important to us as US consumers, so therefore there should be a way of maintaining lower trades or even no trades on them. Then he simply issues some document that says, well, actually everything is subject to tariffs except this and that. So it's a complicated canvas, and South Africa must carry on with what it has been working on trying to put together a much more coherent trade agreement with the United States that will outlast the hysteria of the American president and his golden pen.
All right, Mr. Sithole, thank you so much for your analysis. That's Khaya Sithole, an independent analyst there, unpacking for us that ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday. Also coming in and weighing in on that breaking news, which you see on the side of your screen. President Donald Trump now saying that he will impose a 15% tariffs on all countries and not the 10% he had referred to yesterday.